Hello viewers, welcome to today's show. This is Teens Untold with me, Auntie Marge. Lately, with the high rise of domestic violence in our homes, it has come to a realization that the most affected people are our children. And that is why today we are here with a friend, a life coach, and also an author to have a discussion about how it affects our children and of course the way forward. And with no further ado, I'm going to give her an opportunity to introduce herself. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Aunt Marge. Like you said, I'm Rosemary Maina. I'm a life coach, I'm an author and a corporate trainer, focusing more on leadership and life skills, and glad to be here to focus more on this issue about abuse and violence and how it affects our teenagers. Thank you very much.
Karibu sana, Ros.
Asante.
It's such an honor having you here. And of course, being such a busy person, creating time to be here, I feel honored. And of course, I'm sure we're going to have a discussion today. And of course, we're going to empower our young ones out there, out of like all this that is going on lately. And of course, to be empowered. So, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Now, it has come to my realization out of like having sittings with a lot of the young people, more the teenagers, with the high rise of domestic violence, abuse, more is going, okay, it is on the rise lately. And of course, the most affected people are our young children. So I thought of it and I was like, we need to give it some attention and of course talk more about it on how to like care for these young ones and how they can go about it, making sure that their feelings are not at stake, who they are is not at stake, they continue being who they are, and of course with everything that is going around them, because at times there are things that they can't control. You know, there's nothing much they can do about it. But of course, now we are thinking about them being in such situation. How do they go about it? You know, with the high rise. So my first question will be, with the high rise of the domestic violence, what do you feel, what do you think, like these young ones, like can like cope with the whole situation, and how do they go about it?
Okay, thank you very much, Aunt Marge, and that's very true.
Yeah.
I think in the recent past, one of the things that has really come up, of course, with COVID, there was a lot of emotional and psychological strain, both from a perspective of the adults, which again narrows down to the teenagers who are home for the longest time. Many people are home for the longest time, which brings in a lot of commotion. And that also comes in with the abuse and the psychological, emotional aspects of it. And maybe just to take you a step back, when you talk about abuse, some people just think physical abuse.
Yes.
There's a very huge range or big range when it comes to talking about abuse. Because it's just not about the physical side of it. We are also thinking about the emotional side of it. And we are looking at it, especially when you have a parent's situation at home, where you have one who's probably intimidating the other, that's abuse. And when you have one who is constantly sarcastic, that's a form of abuse. When you have somebody who is restricting the other in one way or the other, you can't go have social functions, meet up with your friends, you can't work where you would want to work or work at all. When you have such kind of restrictions, people don't view that so much as abuse. And on the other side, you don't think that that has an effect on the children around you, as we look at teenagers in this perspective. So we think that they are just being affected maybe by the physical abuse, but it's much more than that. Even when you have arguments that are escalating to another level, even when you think you're having it in the bedroom away from the children, they can actually hear this. They can tell when there's cold treatment in the house.
Sure.
They might not say it, but they can see it and they can tell it. Children see much more and they feel much more than we think.
Sure.
And so when there's that kind of tension in the environment, it obviously gets to affect them as well. The downside of it is that now from a teenager's perspective is that when you look at your parents and you sense all this abuse and tension, sometimes you tend to think maybe it's your fault. That's the first reaction from a child's perspective. I've been in school, maybe things were good, now I'm here, maybe I'm the problem. So that's one way they could look at it. The other way they look at it is maybe I have a role to play here, like try to reduce this tension, like can I do something to help this situation? And that from that perspective, it makes that person or that child stop being a child anymore, a teenager anymore, and you're almost being like taking an adult perspective or an adult role to try and see if there's something you can do about it. Or even worst case scenario, to protect other siblings, especially if you look like maybe a firstborn, trying to protect the other so that they have a better environment to live in. Or another situation where they're feeling like they need to side with one parent and kind of try to solve this situation. Maybe protect the one you feel is being threatened or abused by the other. So it's kind of a tricky situation for a teenager to be in. But again, to come to the perspective of what would they do. Like we always say, if you can't change a situation, then you would have to change your perspective. So it's the perspective side of it. And when I talk from a perspective side of it, it's the understanding first that it is not their fault. The mental shift, that they need to understand that it is not your fault that your parents are not agreeing or that there is abuse going on around you. That understanding of it is not my fault then brings them to this other perspective of it. If it's not my fault, then it is also not my responsibility, at least directly, to stop this abuse. Because the moment you realize it's not your responsibility or you're not the cause of it, then you understand it is not your responsibility to stop this abuse from happening. So you kind of separate yourself from this situation so that your life does not come to a standstill because you have other things as an individual you need to do, as much as you're entangled in all this. And it's not obviously a good place to be because it breaks your trust as a child. Because the biggest trust we have is with our parents, or at least our guardians, the people we look up to. And the moment that trust is broken, it will take a long time. And it breaks with other adults because this is where it begins. But that understanding of it is not your fault. You are not responsible for what is going on, and you are also not responsible for stopping it. And the fact that you also have a right to be safe, psychologically, emotionally, and even physically, you have a right to be safe. So in that case, you probably now need to take a step of finding out, how do I get safe? How do I get the support that I need to be able to probably deal with the emotional side of things that I'm going through.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And I'm so grateful of like the way you have really expounded it and explained even into depth. Like abuse does not necessarily mean like physical. We even have verbal, whereby they insult each other. And as much as like they think like maybe these kids are not hearing. Let's take a scenario whereby they are not even hearing the abuse. You know, like you guys are far away. But you know, when you come back home, you know, it is all over you. Yes. Because the moment like you get like this verbal insight, and you know the verbal brings you down, you know, it just tears like a part of you. And you know, the moment this other person calls you name, you know, there's that piece of you that lives with these insults. So it shows, and you know, kids know how to pick those feelings and those those emotions. So I'm so happy like with the way you have expounded it, and of course I'm sure like they understand it so well. But now I'm imagining of a situation whereby, like as you have said, like they need to understand that they are not the reason why all this is happening, and the fact that they are not the reason, they should not be part of it. But now I'm imagining of a situation whereby there is physical abuse, and comes and now one parent, I will not say, because it can be either. There are places whereby you find it is the mother, there are situations whereby you find it is the man, and they're fighting, and it is really bad. You know, so in such situation, what role can this child play? As much as they are not the reason, as much as they are not supposed, because they cannot just sit and do nothing. You know, so what are their roles in such a situation in case something like this would happen? Okay.
Like you mentioned, it's a tricky situation to be in, and especially in a situation where depending on what kind of relationship you have, a teenager and your parents, you also sometimes, that would determine very much in terms of what can I deal, how do I deal with this situation. Because if you are dealing with probably parents who you are close to, you might be able to talk to, maybe if it's the mother you are close to, if it's the father you are close to, you might try to understand what is really happening. And again, like I've said, sometimes we underestimate the understanding of children in the situations that we are dealing with. But they actually understand more than we think. especially at teenagehood. Below teenage, they might not really understand, but at teenagehood, they actually understand a lot of things.
Though they get affected,
yes.
even I thought they are like younger,
exactly.
Yes.
At whatever age, they're actually getting affected
yes.
in one way or the other. So at this point, you're looking at a teenager who probably understands what is going on, and if they're able to have a conversation with either parties, they can try to at least understand. They might not be in a position to really stop it, but they can actually try to understand what is going on here, because they are really not the mediator, they are really not the counselors in this situation.
Sure.
So they're just trying to get their mind to get to understand what is happening, so that they can try to untangle some of the things that are going around them. Because again, if they are not able to get an understanding, if the more they put it up, the more they take in, the worse it gets for them emotionally. It's stressing them up. It is getting them into depression. Some will react in different ways. And again, also something else for teenagers is some don't even realize they are being affected.
Yes.
So it's also good for them to be on the lookout to know, is this thing affecting me too much or not? So if they realize baby behavior changes, there are some who take it outwardly, so they become very rude, they become very angry, they become very aggressive in school, and they're just taking it out.
Yes.
The others who take it in, so they become stressed, they become depressed, their self-esteem is really taken down. Especially in a situation where you have physical abuse, you realize probably the neighbors already know, your friends in school get to know, so it really takes them down in terms of their self-esteem, and they feel really guilty about this whole situation. So the first bit would be probably try to understand the situation. If they are not able to understand the situation, then the next thing would be able to talk to somebody else who can help them understand this situation. That somebody else could be a mentor that they look up to, it could be a distant relative that they are close to, it could be a family friend, it could be somebody from the church. They need, a teenager needs somebody they can actually trust, and the word here is trust, because the trust is already broken at home. So they need a place where they can establish an adult-teenager relationship that is positive and that they can trust, because that also brings back their trust in adults, that there are actually adults out here who are not as broken as I think. They can actually have a conversation, they can be able to express their feelings, because to heal emotionally, they need to be able to express their feelings. So they need to be able to talk to somebody else for them to be able to deal with it. So I look at it so much in the aspect of them taking care of themselves more than trying to fix this situation, which has very little to do with them, and which they might not have so much of an influence. Because even if I come and tell you stop fighting, I don't know that you are deeper issues.
The reason why.
Exactly. And I might not get to them. And even if I get to them, it is beyond me. I probably, as a teenager, I'll be torturing myself more. So I would look at it in terms of your self-care. What can you do as a teenager to keep yourself safe, especially if it's a physical abuse. You want to make sure you're also safe. If you have siblings and maybe you are the elder one, you want to make sure they are safe. Emotionally, you want to be able to bring out those feelings, because and also to understand that it is okay to feel bad about it. It is okay to feel stressed, because you're a human being. But you need to find a way of dealing with it by talking it out with people you can trust. If you're probably not person who speaks more, you could use other ways from a psychological perspective, probably just finding a way of journaling your feelings, writing poems, drawing, painting. There are many ways you can bring out your feelings. All you're trying to say is that don't bump them inside you, because they're going to erupt in one way or the other. Either go into depression or become a very angry child and a very violent child, a very bitter child, or try to numb those feelings using alcohol and other drugs. So it can actually go down all the way. So the earlier they realize that they're being affected by the situation, the better for them to be able to reach out and talk to somebody who can help them untangle all that and try to build trust and get into activities that can actually help them build their self-esteem so that they're not totally taken down by the situation.
That is very true.
Yeah.
And there's something that you have mentioned, and I'm thinking, this teenager who thinks they are strong enough, you know, they can handle it. You know, there's a lot going on in their homes, but they think like, now that I'm at the fast food, like you know, like there's this notion that we have that firstborns are very strong. Actually, even go on Facebook and you see, like they're the strongest, and they are actually brought up being fed the same thing, like they are so strong, like they can handle anything that is happening. So most of these kids will find that, yeah, all this will be happening. And you know, they're keeping it to themselves like, yeah, I'm a strong, I can handle all this. And I'm happy like you brought it up, like there's nothing like you're strong enough to handle like anything is going around you. You know, it's always good and very healthy to speak it out. Because if you don't, at the end of it all, it will come back to you. You'll be busy, you know, handling all this happening around you, you know, which does not even concern you, which you have absolutely nothing to do at all. It has nothing to do with you, you know, but only who they are. And you have no idea of what is going on, what is bringing about all this. And you're here piling up. You know, you're destroying yourself, you know. At some point, it will bring you down. Either your stem will go low, or as you have said, it will come out in one way or another. We have alcohol, we have sexualism, like you can end up like getting out there and doing other irresponsible things, you know, and all that. So I'm so happy like you brought that up, and at least now they know that there is no reason to keep quiet, and there is so many, you know, openings that you can. One of them, how you have mentioned, is you can go for therapy. So you can talk to a person you trust, or any other person. Huh?
Exactly.
So here I have a situation of I had a teen. At home, there was physical abuse, and the dad used to like fight the mom a lot. And this one day, a fight erupted. And it was so bad. And so what came up in this boy's mind was to rush to the neighbors, to call the neighbors, because the boy felt like this was too much for me. And so the neighbors came and, of course, handled everything. But now after that, it has been tough for this boy, you know, living in this home now. Because now the parents feel they were exposed to a neighborhood whereby they're not moving out, because now they have built a permanent house there, you know. Now the boy was like, no, I can't, I'm not happy being there, because all the times I'm being reminded, you know, of like what you did. It was not right, it was not good, regardless of what was happening around here. Now neighbors know, you know, and they are this respected, they are like, it is a respectable couple in the neighborhood, and they wouldn't have wanted the neighbors to know about it. So my question here is, in such a situation, like what this boy did, what does this boy need to know?
I think the first thing I would want him to appreciate is the fact that he did his best in that situation.
Thank you.
As looking at it from a perspective of at his age, in the circumstances that he was in, he did the best that he could do, because he realized probably I cannot be able to stop this fight. Somebody is going to end up injured in this situation. So the best I can actually do is go look for help. So as a human being, he needs to understand that I did my best. And I think that's the other understanding in all situations for any human being, and not just for teenagers. Appreciating that even if you made a wrong decision, it is the best you knew at that particular point in life.
Time in life.
So you cannot carry
at his age.
Exactly. So you cannot be carrying guilt over you because of something you think you missed and would have done better, yet you didn't know better then. So he did his best in the circumstance that he was in. And
at the same time, the parents haven't taught that boy what the best is. Like in case of a situation where you should run to.
Yes. So in his perspective, he actually did the best. He should actually applaud himself for being able to do that. And I'm glad he's able to speak it out to somebody else like you, because then in that situation, the other somebody in this case is supposed to now bring what you're calling the positive adult-teenager relationship. To make this kid first understand that it is not your fault, you did the best that you could in that situation. But as much as you did your best, whatever was happening or whatever is still happening in that house is not the way things are supposed to be. Of course, again, as the adult supporting the teenager, you don't want to be the one talking bad about the parents. You want to condemn the abuse, but not the parents. You want to be able to separate the two. Because he also needs to understand that these are his parents. I always say in Africa or wherever we are, we don't disrespect our parents.
Yes, we don't.
So he has to understand that these are his parents. So unless his life is in danger, then he has no reason to probably leave that home. If his life is in danger, then he would probably think of who else or where else can I get help. Like I said, he has a right to be safe. So he has a right to be safe, and two, he needs to understand that it is not his fault. He did the best he could in that situation, and he should applaud himself for making that move to look for whatever solution he knew he needed to get at that point. And also to understand that abuse is not right, but these are still his parents, and he has to treat them as they are, as his parents. So he can
respect them as
well.
well.
And respect them as well, even as much as he needs to understand that abuse is wrong. So if he's safe, he just needs to find a way of building his self-esteem and growing through it. Another way of being able to build his self-esteem is to engage in other activities away from home. His hobbies, athletics, exercises, any other thing he's able to engage in. A normal human being self-esteem is built by achieving something, hitting a goal, or learning something new. So just getting himself out of this crowd of just having to think, me, parents fighting, and the thing I did, could be, what else can he be able to do with his life that actually brings his life back and makes him feel like he's making strides for his own personal life. So there are things teenagers need to learn, is to be able not to stop their life, and actually make their life more active. Through exercise, athletics, games, hobbies, whatever else you do, your music, your photography, whatever it is that you have interest in, keep that life going. If you have a routine, like you go to school and go maybe to a class or something else, keep that routine going, because that also expands your mind and takes away your mind from the small thing, let me call it the small thing of the guilt of what is happening at home, to that I still have a life that I'm living. So try keep the life as normal as possible, so and take it away from this negativity, as long as they know that they're actually safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. So as you're explaining, there's something else that Lily came up my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking of this teenage boy. I'm thinking of this teenage girl.
Yeah.
Okay. When I was in school, there was this thing like they used to tell us, in a situation whereby there's abuse in the house. So the man wakes up, abuses the wife. Then the wife, out of like water has been fed to the wife early in the morning, goes to the house girl. Then the house girl, out of this pressure that Ibaikua piled up this morning, goes to the child. And now the child now, out of this pressure, goes to the other pets in that house.
Yes.
So, and that's the routine goes, and then the pets, I don't know to where. Now, my thinking is, here comes a family whereby, a situation whereby there's abuse. And so the husband abuses the wife, and then the wife goes to the kids for an extent. They are not allowed, you know, as you have said, they need to like find other things that they can put this all energy to, like for distraction.
Yeah.
But they are never allowed to leave home, which is another form of abuse, as you had explained earlier. Like when you're denied freedom to do like these things you love, like you cannot live life normal, is also a sort of an abuse. So you find now the mom now comes to the kids, but in form of like you're not leaving the house. If they want to go, like they want to do an activity, the answer is no. You know, so in such a situation, what, like how can these teenagers still live life? You know, take away all this negative energy around them, and they are not allowed to be out there and like live life now.
Live life. Okay. That actually reminds me of a girl that I've been mentoring lately, and she had gone through what I'd call most depression, because she had to even see a psychiatrist at some point. And her challenge was, of course, because there were challenges at home. It was not even physical fight, but she could tell something was not adding up. Like she could say, when my mom goes to work, she comes sometimes as late as 10 p.m. I wonder what she does in that office. My dad leaves so early, I don't think I see her. I don't know what they keep talking about, shouting in the house. And she was actually not really told not to leave the house, but she didn't feel like she wanted to leave the house at all. But of course, because she didn't want that eruption of anger to land on her, so she thought, being safe, let me just stay at home. But at some point, it was too much, and because she's an introvert, so she kept taking it in and taking it in. And like I said, the danger of those who take it in is that it goes into stress, it goes into depression, takes away your self-esteem, and can actually go into depression, and sometimes even suicidal thoughts. So at the point she actually was looking for help, she had suicidal thoughts. And what she realized is, because she could not even talk to the parents, so she wrote whatever was running in her head, the way you could just write it on your phone on the notepad, wrote and wrote and wrote. Then she suddenly and like, who can I just send this to? And then she thought the youth pastor, because before COVID they were going to church, and at least not like she had ever talked to that youth pastor, but for some reason she had her number. So she just sent it. It was not even a conversation, it was just words from her head, and just sent it out to the youth pastor. And that's how the pastor was able to intervene. Of course, it was not easy, but the fact that the parents now realized they didn't know it had gone to the point of affecting this child that much, the pastor was able to intervene and get them professional help, and they were able to take it up. And for the moment, she's indoors, what I could be able to work with her is what are you able to do indoors, so that we could actually even come up with a program for the day. When you wake up in the morning, you'll do your devotion, you'll do your positive affirmations. After that, you can play a music. Of course, everybody has a hobby. For her, she loves music, so she could sing, she could play her piano inside the house, watch a movie. We could agree which movie she can actually be able to watch. In the afternoon, even if she doesn't need to go for within the compound, ride your bike, take a walk, do a stretch, whatever you're able to do around, just something to boost your self-esteem. Try something new. What do you like? I love cooking. Try a new recipe. Mix anything in that house. Cook something and see what comes with it. Just try do as much as you can. If you have a friend, you can chat them up, do a video chat, whatever you're able to do. Just don't crowd yourself in a cocoon of your own where you are doing nothing. So my situation in that case would be, who is the one person that person can be able to reach? Luckily these days you have phones. So if you can do, even if you're not able to call, because again in such situations sometimes it's not even clear in the head, or you don't feel like talking to somebody, write whatever is in your head, write it, send it to whoever you think will read and be triggered by it to do something that could actually get you help. If you're stuck in house, don't stay in bed with your curtains closed. Look for any activity around the house that can actually, that interests you, that you can actually be able to do to keep your life going. And with that, we've seen a lot of improvement. And up to a person when at the point where now if the person can voluntarily now go out and do something with themselves.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm happy like it's coming out. The catchword here is like, just find something, regardless whether you're indoor or outdoor, as long as it's positive and of course it's impacting you in a very positive way, and of course things that are moving you from one point to another but in a very positive way, and gear that energy towards that, and of course there'll be a lot of improvement. So thank you so much for that. We're about in a situation whereby now it is in school, whereby this child has taken too much. And of course we say those kids who bully others, you know, they are the ones who are bullied back at home, because as we say, charity begins at home. Now it has gone for an extent all the way to school now. How do you, like as teachers, how do they deal with such a situation to make sure they don't, you know, there are times like teachers don't understand, and instead of making the situation better, they even make it worse. You know, they'll pick up on this child all times, like uko na tabia mbaya, wazazi wako wakufunzi tabia, you know, those speak all these kind of words, and you know, instead of masking the situation, no, not like masking, instead of like dealing with this child the way it's supposed to, and like supporting the child towards like taking care of everything that is going around him, you know, they make the situation worse, and you know, this boy end up getting lost completely. So as teachers out there, what can they do to make sure like these teenagers, these young people, they're supported enough not to lose it? You know. Very, very true. I know in our culture we have vichwa ngumu, but we never get to ask ourselves, how did this vichwa ngumu happen? That is very true. That is how we call them.
We just call them vichwa ngumu. But for the kids who have gotten to the kichwa ngumu side of things, something probably happened somewhere. And I don't want to justify all the vichwa ngumus. There could be some who are just bad characters. But you also want to ask yourself, before you probably punish this person over and over and over again, is there something that you're missing? Is there a missing link here? So I like you said, as teachers, even as guardians, or just a community of even extended relatives, sometimes you want to ask yourself, what happened to this kid? Because if maybe before that they were not this bad, or even if they just came with this habit, is there something they picked somewhere? Because like you said, sometimes when somebody goes through abuse, or they have been in an environment that is abusive, they act out. By acting out, they will bully others, they have very reckless behaviors, they are going to do things that don't even add up. But they're just looking for a way of taking that energy out. It's the pain, the anger, the guilt, and the hurt that they're actually taking out on other people. So and I think the lucky thing we have these days, maybe sometimes even some primary schools, you realize teachers have become more friendly. Sometimes the kids even feel safer in teachers' hands than with the parents. I always tell parents,
tafadhali ukikanyanga mwalimu mkanyange pale pole, because if there are people who have our secrets, they are teachers nowadays.
Because teachers have gotten to a point where they have looked at kids differently. And they have been able to relate very well. So in that situation, then the kid is lucky because they could actually be able to express themselves even if they're not able to express themselves at home. If they have gone to a place where they're not able to express themselves, but they're now expressing themselves through weird behaviors, then the teacher needs to take time and try to understand, is there something going back at home? Just having a small conversation, friendly conversation with a kid. Like I said, mostly kids are very genuine and they're very authentic.
Sure.
At teenagehood, you might try to be more of a friend for them to give you information. The moment they realize they can trust you, because remember they have trust issues, the moment they realize they can trust you and you have established a relationship that they can actually trust, they're going to give you information. They're not giving you information from a perspective of this is what my problem is. They will be getting information in terms of what's going on at home, what is your life, what's going on, what are you thinking, the normal conversation. Then of course you'll be able to pick things that could be contributing to the problem that you're dealing with on the table. Then in that case, even if you're not able to handle the parent's part, you can be able to handle the child part and make even them understand that whatever you are going through is actually just acting out of your emotional issues. So because they also don't understand. They don't understand why they're bullying people. They don't understand why they're being abusive. They don't understand why they're doing all this.
And you find that maybe the abuse has been normalized at home.
Yes.
So when they come out there, whatever they are doing to them is normal. But now to others is very abnormal.
It's very abnormal, yes. And the problem is if it's not handled in that situation, it's going to move into adulthood. So you're going to have an adult who doesn't trust any other human being because the trust was broken, and they think overreacting is the norm. It's what things are supposed to be, or abuse is the norm because that's what they grew up knowing. So again, as a teacher or the adult who is around them, you have a chance to be able to shift that by first making them understand that all these habits you are seeing, I can now tell you that you're not just having bad habits, it's what you have been harboring inside based on the abuse and the guilt and the pain you're going through that is coming out in this version. So then you're able to work with the person, or at least work with the teenager, and try to help them at least change their perspective and deal with the issues from a positive perspective. Take that energy to another angle positively in a way that they're able now to rebuild themselves emotionally and boost their self-esteem to be able to get to a point where they can actually now be able to interact with other people normally.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have focused more now on these young ones.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking of like the parent.
Yeah.
What does the parent need as we wind up due to time?
Yeah.
What does the parents need to understand? What can they do to make the situation different or the environment conducive for their kids, regardless of the relationship that they're having?
Yeah.
What do they need to learn? Can they give them like, is it right for a parent to like give a way forward in case something happens? You can do this. If this fight it escalates until here, maybe you can do A, B, C, D. Maybe if it happens, just to walk away. If it, is it right? Is it okay? To warn your kids. If not, what are parents supposed to handle themselves? What are they supposed to do to make sure, like, regardless of what is happening between them, it does not affect the children?
Okay. Yeah. I think the first thing I would want to understand that whatever happens affects the child in one way or the other. So you're giving this child a burden of how do I deal with it when it happens.
Yeah.
Because whatever happens positively or negatively affects the child. And like I've said, it could be the smallest of things. It could be the sarcastic conversations you have in the house. It could be the intimidation. It could be the negative talk about your partner when the other partner is away and your children are around. So it's those small things. Whatever you look at it, it's actually affecting them in one way or the other. But like you said, again, we are parents and you want the best for your children.
Sure.
So you also want to understand what age of children are you dealing with. Because if you're dealing with a 2-3-year-old, there's not much they can do.
Sure.
They are literally in your hands. So whatever is happening, you better think how are you going to rescue the situation. If you're dealing with a child who is probably getting to teenagehood or a teenager, they're in a better understanding. So in that case, you can actually be able to tell them, have a conversation with them, and tell them what is going on. And sometimes even them, they understand. I was talking to a lady the other day the daughter now is around 25. She got a divorce when the daughter was 17. And was telling me I was in this abusive relationship for the whole 17 years. And I never thought of leaving because I thought my daughter would never understand. But the most amazing thing is the daughter who told the mother, why can't you leave now? Because at that point she could understand and she could tell now this is abuse and my mother is stuck here because of me. So having a conversation that the child can understand based on their age can help them synthesize that information and sometimes even make you understand that whatever you're trying to protect them from, they actually don't need to be protected from it. they probably think you could make the better decision.
Yeah.
So you need to have that conversation with them. If you're probably having a child who is around 7-8 years, you need to make sure that they have a relationship maybe with their other relatives, an aunt, an uncle. Because again, like another person I've dealt with, they had a daughter who's around 6-7 years, and she always had a phone at home. And so whenever things got really bad at home, she would actually pick the phone and call maybe the aunt or somebody, because there are people she had interacted with a lot, and she could tell when things are really going bad and she doesn't know what to do because she can't run away from home, then she would call them. But again, you realize that's a very delicate situation, because that kid will have those memories for a very long time.
A long time.
So the only thing that this phone call is helping is her safety, and maybe the safety of the parents, so that the fight does not escalate too much. Because then in that case, somebody would come in, or somebody would keep calling the parents until they have to pick the phone, and then kind of neutralize the situation. So you can look at the age of the child that you are dealing with and see what are they able to handle. Most importantly, for their safety, because their safety, like I said, their safety comes first. But you have to know that whatever that situation is, psychologically and emotionally, they will have to deal with. So you might need to help them walk through that later, even if you're going to get a counselor or a professional to help them deal with those emotions as early as possible, so that it doesn't affect them into adulthood. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that, and I'm so impressed, and I'm so happy. Like, it's coming up so well, and I'm impressed by the wisdom, like you possess on the inside, and I'm so glad like you're sharing this with the young ones, and I'm sure they have learned a lot today. And what I'm taking home with me, and I'm sure they are, is that it is not right to normalize dysfunction.
Yes.
Because the moment we normalize dysfunction in our homes, we make our kids grow up thinking dysfunction is normal. True. And so by the time we are releasing them out there to the public, they go out there thinking what is normal to them. It's very abnormal out there, and so it makes it hard for them to like interact with others. Because you know, these are people who will bully. Like for them, verbal insult, it's nothing to them, because they grew up learning things from home. So we raise very toxic kids out there, and at times we stick into these marriages thinking that you're doing justice to the kids, whereas we harm them in them even more. And I can remember a friend who told me, like, it came a time whereby like the son told her, like, if you think, mom, even this marriage because of me, and because you fear that like once you leave, dad won't pay school fees for me, I'll make sure I do so well such that the government will pay for me regardless whether he pays the school fees or not. And he told the mom, it's time, hit the road, leave, because the more you continue living here, it's not doing good for me. Very true. So let us not await that time whereby kids are the ones telling us, you know, leave. There are so many things we can do, and I'm happy, like you brought up, like as a parent, when you realize there is such an environment at home, you can also take it as your responsibility. Don't assume like they're being affected. Don't assume like they are way too young. You know, do something. Take them for counseling. Take them for therapy. Find someone who can journey with them. You know, deal with those feelings, those emotions, to make them understand everything that is happening has absolutely nothing to do with them. You know, and of course, it's not. They are not the cause as to why all that is happening. Very true. So thank you so much for being here. And before we leave, parting shots. Let me talk to the teenagers, because that's the reason why we are here. Thank you. So I would look at it in a summary, and I want to remind them, one, remember that if there's abuse going around you, or if you're exposed to any form of abuse, one, it is not your fault. You have nothing to do with whatever is going around you. Two, that means that it is responsibility of the abuser. It is the abuser who is responsible for whatever is going on. So do not feel responsible to stop what is going around. You can only do so much. You cannot take it all by yourself. But what that means is that you also have a role, and you also have a right. And you have a right to be safe. So whatever the situation you're in, at least make sure you are safe. And the easiest way to make sure you are safe is to be able to talk to somebody else. So the most important thing is whatever means you're going to use. Are you going to chat it? Are you going to put it live somewhere on social media? Whatever it takes.
you need to talk to somebody. You need to make somebody know that you're actually struggling and you need help. A few might not help, but eventually somebody might come to your rescue to be able at least to walk with you and help you deal with the emotions psychologically and emotionally. Because if it's affecting you, then you need help to be able to journey through it. So whatever the case, remember, you are not alone. You always need to be able to reach out to somebody else, and you can actually be able to go through this, because it is not your fault, but you have a right to be safe and you have a right to be psychologically and emotionally okay. So do whatever it takes. Reach out to somebody who you can actually trust and somebody you can actually be able to work with. And for the parents, remember, whatever happens around at home or in the environment that you're in directly affects the children in one way or the other, whether they are seeing it or not. It directly affects them. So whatever you do, be sure that your children are safe, and if they are affected, look for professional help to help them cope with the emotions they are going through, so that you don't release toxic children into the community, or raise children who cannot become responsible adults into the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Strong parting shot.
Thank you.
It's such an honor to have you here. Thank you so much, and I'm so looking forward. I know we'll have more of this.
Sure. Why not?
We'll come back, and of course we empower our teenagers more. Because our main aim is to have a safe-free generation. Of course, even when you release them out there, they'll be strong enough to stand, and of course to also stand for others. Thank you so much for having you.
And thank you for having me.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
So, asante sana. That is all we have for today. Until next time, this is Wema TV, the voice of hope.
Wema TV, the voice of hope.